want to bring up another topic for you because this is a hot topic. Deion Sanders, man. And
Yeah,
speaking
man.
of Dr. Umar
Ooh,
with the Breakfast Club, we're going to get in the Breakfast Club as well with Dr. Umar. Um,
man.
Deion Sanders, Jacksonville University. 3 years from what I understand, 1.5 million contract, was a high school coach,
Uh-huh.
high school right there in Texas,
Uh-huh.
took his game to the next level as Deion does.
Yeah.
Jackson State gambled on him. The gamble paid off
Mm-hmm.
to a degree because he left. But there's a whole bunch of controversy around Deion Sanders' decision after leading Jacksonville to the undefeated season, from what I understand, if I'm not mistaken, as well as winning SWAC. I'm not sure if you told me about it. Somebody told me about SWAC. SWAC in the HBCU division, right, is like the Super Bowl. All right.
Yeah, SWAC, yeah.
And there was a conflict between one of the coaches who were heading to SWAC too, and Deion was wearing the SWAC, and the whole social media craze, and that coach was like, "Yo, you ain't SWAC." Deion Sanders, from what I understand, was extending the hand of good sportsmanlike conduct, and the coach on the other side, "Get your hand out of here! I don't know you like that. I don't know. Get out my face." That whole thing leading up to SWAC, and then it's like, all right, so Deion's like, "When I get in the SWAC, I'm gonna beat you. Tear you up." So, right, it was one of those things. And he went to Colorado before the actual last game, promised to come back with a championship because what he starts, he finishes. That whole nine. So he was representing us as a culture, HBCU, and he left the HBCU to go because this other college, Division A, from what I understand, Colorado, Buffaloes or what have you, offered him a $5 million contract. And Deion Sanders, typical Deion, took that opportunity. So people are saying that he abandoned us black people. Dr. Umar in particular, which will tie into this conversation, is saying that. So what are your thoughts on the whole Deion Sanders thing?
A lot of people upset. I HBCU holla Fisk University in his house. Fisk University in his house. First of all, holla. Family comes from HBCUs. I got family who went to Jackson State. Almost went to Jackson State for college. So many family members have friends that graduated from Jackson State. So I'm very, very familiar. Not as familiar as I like to be, but very familiar. And yeah, man, people upset, man, passionate. I've heard so many intelligent, very insightful perspectives on this Deion situation, man. And I love the conversation because it's putting HBCUs in the forefront. So even though people look at it as a negative, it's actually putting the conversation of HBCUs in the forefront and how we can improve them. Because our HBCUs are, most of them are lacking funds. And it's lacking funds because some of them are state sponsored. Some of them are not. Mine, Fisk University was a private school, so we weren't. But Tennessee State down the street was. And they still having issues with certain things. So, and Eddie George is a part of their football squad. Eddie George, who used to play on the Tennessee Titans, he's also a coach, a popular coach in the HBCU circuit, football coach. So going back to Deion did what was best for Deion. Ultimately, he did what's best for Deion. He did not finish his contract, so he's going to have to pay $300,000 back to Jackson State, which he can afford now. But Deion, let me give a few perspectives. One, Deion, while he was there, did a lot for Jackson State. I mean, he put them on a map. They got an undefeated record. Last I checked, they were 12-0 this season, right? 12-0. Whereas before, I think they were breaking even before he got there, if that. The man got them new locker room, got them a new locker room, state of the art, got them a new training room, state of the art. Donate some of his money, some of his salary back to the school to get some of these facilities done. Motivated them to be better men. Talk to them like a elder father figure. Always promoted Jackson State. He was on 60 Minutes recently, 2 weeks ago, I think, 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. Promoting JSU and their issues and their problem. Not only Jackson State, but the Jackson, Mississippi, where Jackson State is located, which I've been and have family there. All right. They recently had the water crisis there. You know, he had to swim in the swimming pool to wash up, him and his players, to wash up and bathe, right? I mean, the man has made sacrifices, right? One thing that somebody said, and I hate that I can't quote them per se, but a friend of the family recently had told me, he's like, you know, what throws people off is, especially black folks, when you start using God, right? You know, God brought me here. God, you know, led me here. And I can't say, because, you know, that's your personal relationship. But when you use that and then you move that quickly on an offer, when you don't even finish out your contract, you know, people will get jaded. People, because you're using the God, that language, that religious, spiritual language, then it's like, well, oh, now God, move your head. Like, well, it seems like you're manipulating God. It seems like that's a manipulation there. But it also ties into this, Kayode, and viewers. It ties into, you know, that spiritual aspect. It's like you can't question the spirit. You know, you throw that in, it's like people are like, you can't question God, you can't question the spirit.
Mm,
And it allows people to have in their subconscious, oh, you're a savior. You're the
mm,
one person to come and save us.
mm,
Taps into that subconscious behavior, that subconscious thinking of, oh, God told you to come, so you're doing all this, you're our savior. You know, you're coming to save us. And it's like we have to be very careful about that. That
mm,
even though Deion said that God brought him there, even though Deion did a lot, even though Deion was really pumping Jack State and pumping HBCUs and we need more and we need to do this, that doesn't go in vain.
mm,
That does not go in vain. Do we wish he would have stayed out his contract? Yes.
mm.
Are we salty? Let's be real, family. Are we salty that he left beforehand and didn't seem like he finished out? Yeah. Heck yeah. We have a right to be, because we have invested. We have invested our time, we have invested the money, we have invested resources. And it's also a good feeling to see our HBCUs promoted just as high as these HWCUs.
Mm,
People say PWIs, which means predominantly white institutions. No, 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 no. These historically white colleges and universities.
mm,
Let's keep it a buck, as they say, right?
mm,
They're not predominantly white, they're historically white, right? They're historically white, right? Now that doesn't mean that black folks can't enter, but these are historically white institutions made for white families to prosper. Let's be
mhm,
honest.
mm.
Let's be
Good.
very real here.
Go ahead, Cal.
So with Deion moving, are we hurt? Yes, we are hurt. Are we surprised? Not necessarily, because people were already saying that this man might not stay this long because he's
Mm,
creating such a good feeling and atmosphere of prosperity and winning that these white schools are going to want to put. And you know, and Deion is a one in a million type of person.
mm,
The way he promotes himself, the way he promotes things that he does, his charismatic behavior. He's a unique individual.
mm,
So most coaches, period, white or black, do not promote themselves like that.
mm. Good
He's a
point.
very unique individual. He's a very unique individual to come into a place and not only bring a good record in, bring up prosperity, but also promote it at the same time.
Mm,
That's a unique characteristic. That's a unique trait that he has. So what I've been telling people is that energy doesn't go in vain. That energy will allow somebody else or other people to step up. They're not going to be the same as Deion, so we could knock that out of the box right now. But what it allows is that energy doesn't wane. That energy disperses. So
mm,
that may be the spark for maybe a young man or a young woman who's
mm,
maybe in high school or in college or maybe even a junior high school to say, you know what, I'm going to choose an HBCU. Or once I become an HBCU, I'm thinking about coaching because I want to change the dynamic. I want to invest in. You know, there may be other black entrepreneurs across the nation, even globally, say, you know what, we need to look at these schools and really start to invest more. This may be the resurgence of HBCUs in general. We don't know, but to say that we can't feel some type of way, I won't push back on that because I feel some type of way. But is this a business of sports? Yes, this is a business of sports. This is the business of sports, whether we like it or not. This is the business of sports, and not to say that Deion going to Colorado is not going to create change there in those arenas, right? Now, again, would we have rather him stayed and not took the 5 million from 300,000, roughly speaking, to 5 million? That's a hard press for anybody. I challenge you because I challenge myself. I'm putting myself on this too. Put myself on this platter that I'm about to serve. You're working your job, you love your job. You're making, let's say you're making, because that's still over the average. The average person is making 50 to 60,000 on average. After that, it goes to about 100,000, 80 to 100,000. You're making 300,000 on your job. You love your job. You love the people. You love it. Somebody says you can have a job that's doing the same amount of work, right? May not be the same impact, but the same amount of work, 5 million. Let's see who's going to turn that down. Let's see. I'm putting myself in that pot too. Put myself on that platter. Who going to turn that down? This is a business. This is a business. And if my business is serving, depending on what my perspective is, I'm like, how can I better serve? Can I better serve here, making say roughly 300,000, roughly speaking, because I know the numbers are maybe not this exact, versus 5 million, not overall a year. A year. It's hard pressed, man. It's hard pressed. I remember something Chris Rock said, and this ties into loosely what I'm saying. He said, Chris Rock said in one of his interviews years ago, he said, these athletes are taking steroids to enhance their performance enhancing drugs or chemicals. He said, man, I would be hard pressed to say if as a comedian, if there was a drug or something to enhance my performance, if I would not take it. He said, I'm just being honest. I don't know if I would have the will not to take it. Not to say I would, but I would question it. And that's what I'm saying. People that got all these, they're hurt. I get it. People are hurt. People want it. People believed in the dream because that's what Deion sold. So they have a right to be hurt. But in regards to calling out his name and all this other thing, that's just going too far. We looking out for ourselves. We look out for the whole, but he's looking out for himself too. But I think he's still also looking out for HBCUs to a degree because he'll be able to give back in certain ways. But he also has brought attention and sacrifice while he was there. He did a lot while he was there. So ultimately what I'm saying, family, is do you have a right to be upset? Yes, you do. But do you also have a right to acknowledge the work that this man has done? Yes, we have to do that too.
I give him that respect. You said a lot, Kyle. Yo.
Yeah, man. I mean, I grew up in HBCUs, man. I'm 4 generations deep in HBCUs. 4 generations deep, right? I'm the 4th, right? So I'm in this. You know what I'm saying? I can rattle them off: Tougaloo, Central State, Jackson State, TSU, Tennessee State, Fisk University. What's the other one? Morehouse. Clark Atlanta. Virginia State, Hampton. I can, Howard University. Yo, we in here, man.
Wow. My take on.
Oh, excuse me, American Baptist College. Excuse me, American Baptist College. Oh, yeah, I mentioned Tougaloo, right? I said Tougaloo, right?
No.
Tougaloo College. That's also Mississippi.
Okay. Yeah, you said a mouthful right there, brother. With regards to, wow, you said a lot.
Oh, excuse me, my bad. One more, Wilberforce, Wilberforce University, Ohio, Central State Wilberforce. Shout out to the Woo. Shout out to CSU.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. You did good. My take on Deion, oh man, is one in which it's an internal conflict, I would say. Mm-hmm. Because for me, you get hit with a range of thoughts. 1 minute, based on some information that you hear, you feel one way, and then when more information come out, you tend to feel another way. It changes your viewpoint and maybe change it back. As more information comes out, you're bouncing back and forth. Mm-hmm. So I think my challenge is coming up with the overall, based on the information that currently available to us now, which pretty much got a good sense, and just general, like you said, I'm putting myself on this platter too. If I was offered 5 million and I'm making 300,000 and stuff like that, Deion, man, you got to give him his props. You got to give him his flowers, man. To be an all-star athlete. Mm-hmm. College, right? To play on 3 different football teams, NFL,
and play 2 sports,
and
equally well.
Yes, equally well, and to be victorious in them. He was on the Atlanta Falcons. Never made it to the Super Bowl and won, but he went to Dallas Cowboys. San Francisco, won a championship there.
Yes, sir.
Made a name for himself there. Dallas Cowboys won a championship there. Made a name for him there. So he's a winner.
Yes.
So you got to give him his props for that just alone to accomplish what you've accomplished. A lot of athletes, that's it. Once they retire, the most you see of them after that is being a news sports broadcaster.
Right, and he did that for a while. Remember?
And he did that as well. And the way he's raising his children. Right, we don't want to talk about that. Family man, even though there was some messed up with Pilar, his wife, and that whole thing, he was on top of his game. The games that's being played in regards to the stigmas that black fathers get, he made sure he stayed on point, stayed in his frame with all that, and get caught up in that and then get messed up with that. The fact that he also been in some reality shows. Oprah channel, right? I don't know if you remember that. He was on the Oprah channel.
I remember it, but I never watched it. But I do remember when it was out, but I never did get a chance to watch it. Yeah.
Well, it would give you some insight, some keen insight on how he raised his family and his children, his sons and his daughters. And then, like we said, from there he went into high school coaching and stuff. So to round it out, right, and to how I feel about the decision, at one point, based on the information that was coming out, I felt a kind of way. I felt that he was abandoning black, but I think that's conditioning. I think that was programmed because of the state or the affairs that we as a culture are in this country. We need as much help as we can get. And like you said, it's that savior complex, right? Where we're looking for one person, we're looking for that next Martin Luther King, we're looking for that next Malcolm X to deliver us to the promised land. That's the conditioning I think a lot of people are coming from in regards to why they're upset with the decision that he made and why they're talking bad, because that's what do insult, you know what I mean, shaming, a need to be right, so to speak, to make them feel good because they feel they've been let down or abandoned. Us in our culture. So I understand that, but I'm going to tie this in before I get to the money aspect. Personally, I don't have the in-depth background and experience that you have 4 generations in, Cal, with historically black colleges and universities. But I do have how can I put this? Someone who hasn't been down south, a black person who hasn't been down south, who's been reared in the north, that perspective. And it's, we're dealing with different dynamics of our culture because our culture is vast. But I'll say this in terms of my family, my mom in particular, who is a get things done woman, right? In the complex that we lived in back in the Bronx, sitting on a committee when things need to be done in the complex, or the case would be. My mom, was very vocal to the extent that she was elected president of the committee in this community, and she took the job very seriously. And this is in addition to her working a 9-to-5 and then coming home and having to put paperwork together for this committee, or whatever the case may be. And I'm saying all this to say in terms of us as a culture, whereas they would have meetings and we talk about the things that need to get done. And this is, I'm shining the light on us as a culture, that particular demographic of culture, not all, but that part of our culture, where when it came down to work being done, nobody wanted to do the work.
Right.
So my mother had to learn the hard way. And she was in her 40s, I think, around this time, some late 40s, where she would put herself on the front line to get stuff done for the community, which was composed of us as blacks and Hispanics, and putting herself on the front line when the work needed to be done. All these people in these meetings are good to talk the talk, pop all that shit, excuse my language. But then when it actually came down to work getting done, nobody wanted to do the work. They all wanted to put the suggestions out there. You do this, you do that. Okay. So then you had to take, oh no, I can't because, I got this. So why are you talking? You know what I mean? If you're going to put that out there, then at least contribute in some kind of way. And that's what my mother had to face. People talk, and she was the one, because she was so dedicated in what she did, she found herself taking on those responsibilities. She found herself taking on those suggestions, as it were, and the rest of them sitting back on their ass, not doing nothing, reaping the benefits and the rewards of the labor of someone else. And that taught me a valuable lesson. And that taught her a valuable lesson. And I'm saying that to tie it into Deion, Whereas, yeah, you putting all this stuff on my shoulders as the savior for this so-called college, when some of the, I don't know how true it is, some of the guys, they didn't pay him. But he was supposed to get a bonus at the end of 1 year, 2 years, what have you. They didn't give him his just desserts. That you mentioned, the renovations that he did and giving, and and uplifting the facilities to make it better for the players, to make them better. They didn't pay for all of it. He had to come out of his own personal expenses to do it. Again, taking on the role, taking on that responsibility, while the rest of them motherfuckers sit on their backside and just watch and reap the rewards from all that.
Right.
It's not right.
To add on to what you're saying, Kayode, the 68,000 revenue or ticket sales. No, 68,000 in attendance for one of the games. And then, but it only registered at 28,000, 25,000 ticket sales. It's like, well, somebody's stealing.
It ain't that real.
And this not only happens at HBCUs, people. This not only happens at HBCUs. This happens at the white institutions too. But because, like Kayode is saying, like you're saying, Kayode, we're already at a deficit as far as financial assistance and financial overflow. That it's a stark difference, in comparison to HWCUs, especially those what they call the Power Five, which I don't really like that term, but
it's not adding up. It's not adding up, right? So just putting that in its perspective, Deion was wise and he was hip to it. You know what I mean? And he also said, "I'm not leaving black people. I'm black. Where am I going to run to? Where am I running from? I'm black. Wherever I go, I'm black." I'm looking. So I'm saying all that to say, and I'm putting the onus on where it should be. And again, like you said, you're putting yourself on that platter. I'm putting myself on that platter too. Taking accountability as we need to do as a culture. We're talking about how blacks are struggling with funding. You just mentioned the ticket discrepancy. Someone's not. I mean, come on, man. What I mean? What are we doing as a culture? You trying to put the blame, you trying to find a scapegoat with this man as to why we're not achieving what we need to achieve. When we as a culture not doing what we need to do, we're busy sitting on our ass in the back trying to reap the rewards from somebody else's labor. As a message to our community and our target demographic, if we don't like the situation that we're in and we want to be liberated and we want to be free, everybody's got to pay their dues. Everybody got to put up their fair share. Everybody. Whatever shape or form that takes. No sitting back in the cut, waiting, putting everybody else on the front line. And then when they all die out and everything that now you come up as if, and it happens too, as if you did something. Like you were the one taking credit for something you ain't do. So that's where this is where I stand on. And this is where I tell you, we've had this conversation as well. Where I say, yeah, I'm for our black cause. I am. But I'm not going to put myself on no fucking front line for my culture and you're not carrying your weight. I'm not doing it. And that's what frustrates me because it's a catch-22. We need each other.
Right.
I can only be successful to a certain point. And I'll bring this up. A hand, right? 5 fingers individually can't do as much damage as a fist. And we can make more impact as a fist than we can individually. Five fingers. And that's why we've been getting our backside beat for all these years because we've been operating as individuals, not carrying our weight, forming that unity. And I get it. It's what do you call cognitive dissonance, slave syndrome, Dr. Joy DeGruy, the books we read and stuff like that. But at some point we got to wake up. And if we have this energy to point at Deion, where's that energy to point at ourselves?
Indeed, man.
Right? We got all this vitriol for Deion Sanders, who left Colorado. What are we doing? I think it was mentioned in one of the conversations. Well, why can't we as a black organization, I know this was said in a menial form, but why couldn't we put up a, GoFundMe form or something like that to keep him at Jackson State? Why couldn't we not, before we go GoFundMe, why couldn't we just be accountable for the ticket sales that was sold? Why couldn't we make the math add up with just that? something that's already established. Why couldn't we just? There's nothing. We don't have to do anything extra with that. Just be accountable for the tickets that were sold. Because that's what Deion said. Something wasn't adding up. Yeah. Why couldn't we do that? Why couldn't we do a GoFundMe for the facilities that Deion was trying to bring in to make the play? I mean, if we did that, maybe we would have more talented coaches coming in. And Deion said it himself, matter of fact, in one of the interviews where he says there are some black talented coaches already in HBCUs that could kill a game. That could kill a game in colleges or whatever the case would be. But they don't have that same. To an extent, he says they may be complacent in some areas. He also says something in the interview, too, that a lot of them witnessed the same thing Deion witnessed and want to speak up but can't because they're afraid of losing their job.
Right.
If they speak about the injustices, if they speak about this and all that. So you have all these dynamics at play taking place here. And that's why, again, my point on Deion is I don't have fault with what he did. Until we as a culture get our act together, and do what we're supposed to do, shut up. Leave Deion alone. 5,300,000 is a no-brainer. Yeah, 5 million. And this is another thing. If we're going to be real, like you said, there's not one person. I would say very few. I'll say 90.
Very few.
99. 1.1% of an individual who, if given the same opportunity, wouldn't have taken it. And if they wouldn't have, they're lying. They're capping.
Right.
They're doing it today.
I'm gonna tell you real fam, I'm at least consider it. That's for sure. I'm at least consider. I'm not saying I'm gonna take it, but I'm at least consider it. And that's real. And we're not saying him taking it is either right or wrong. It just is. It just is. We don't know this man's overall objective and plan. I'm hoping that he still would help donate or help bring some type of prestige to HBCUs, even though while he's at Colorado, maybe some of his money he might say, look, I decided I might maybe donate, 1% or 2% back to this HBCU. He might do it. I don't know, but we'll see. Time will tell. But in order, if we, it's like this. If we trust the man at Jackson State, how are we not going to trust him at University of Colorado? It's like going with it. It's like dating a man or a woman, and you all in love with them and all this other stuff. You're like, oh, it ain't gonna last. Well, it ain't gonna last because you're saying it's not gonna last. You're not being present. You're not appreciating the person in the moment. So then when they move on, it's like, okay, I'm not really getting reciprocated here. You know what I'm saying? And it seems like this relationship is not really going anywhere. Oh, mess you didn't. I didn't like you, no way. I didn't like you anyhow. It's like, come on, you really like them. You just hurt, and I understand that because we've all been there to some degree. You just hurt, and there's no shame in that. But we're saying after if you get all that out, back to us. What are we doing for Jackson State? What are we doing for Tennessee State? What are we doing for like my alma mater, Fisk University? What are we doing? What are we doing for these HBCUs to cultivate that greatness that is there? But if we're not going to invest in ourselves and be the catalyst to be the person that starts and also maintains that level of accountability, like you said, Kayode, responsibility and consistency in that, then what are we talking about?
And to that point, I get the frustration and you're going to this white institution to make them better. You're going to this white institution to help increase their revenue, right? You're going to this white institution to put them on the map. I get, I understand that sentiment. Yeah, I like, damn, we lost another one to the white man. You know what I mean? Right, taking our talent. Right. I get it. I understand that, but at the same time, and this is a big thing, right? What are we taking accountability for?
Right.
Right. That's the thing that be bothered. Yes. Go about this. I don't know if the right word is pragmatically, but just go about this step by step. Just cover step 1 first before we jump to step 2 and step 3. And what I mean by that is simply this: why don't we take accountability of our own actions first? Let's do that first. Yes. Do what we're supposed to do first. Which is what I was talking about earlier. Let's do what we're supposed to do as a culture first, because I'm tending to believe if we take care of our home first, we won't have to worry about the threat of some other institution being outside our culture stealing any of our talent, because we would have already built our foundation, our empire, whatever the case would be, to be able to provide for our own. And I think
Yeah.
that's what we lack. We're not taking accountability for ourselves. And again, I get it as well as that. It's that programming, the crabs in the barrel syndrome. We got this ingrained thing that messes us up psychologically, where we can't work with each other because of that distrust. The house nigga compared to the field nigga. We can't, we're all vying for the attention of the man. You know what I mean? I get that psychological ingrained training that we've gotten through slavery over the years. But now with technology today, as each generation gets smarter, gets wiser, there's more advancement in technology today, there's accountability. And I'm going to tie it into this point as well. Remember we were talking about trauma in terms of relationships and a person being born, having been abused and stuff like that, not making light of that at all. Not at all. But at some point in your life, you can't keep blaming your youth, man. You can't keep blaming, and again, I'm not making light of it, but you can't keep blaming, this happened to me when I was 6 and 7, 8 years, God forbid, you know what I mean? At some point, you have to take accountability for your actions.
Yeah, man.
At some point, you're a grown adult. At some point, you got to seek the necessary help. You got to do what you need to do. You know what I mean? And I get it. I'm struggling every day to try and make sure I don't make excuses and dealing with the world and all that stuff. I get it. But there's something to be said when you take accountability. And I'm not saying it's always got to be an individual type thing.
Right.
Seek help, man. Yeah, seek. I do it to today with, you know what's going on personally. Thank God for my family. I'm quick to, I need help. You know what I mean? I want to do better. Trauma, so we got to, whatever that looks like for our individual lives, we have to take responsibility and accountability for our stuff. And we as a culture, we got to take accountability. That whole, and I'm going to stay on that one point. I'm sure there are many others. But that point that you mentioned, ticket sales compared to what was, the net that we got in, there's a big gap there. Yeah. You got to take it. That's a big part right there of accountability. What are we doing? So, and you said, somebody was stealing.
Right.
Who was stealing, man?
Somebody's were stealing. His individual items got stolen when he first got there.
I heard there was a broke into the locker room or something like that, right?
Yeah, broke into the locker room, got a watch, then they stole like his stereo out of his car. But he understood. That's what I'm saying. That's why that's why we as a people have to have more compassion for ourselves and each other. It's not to excuse the behavior, but having more compassion because you know where their head is at. He's coming to Jackson, Mississippi, which is one of the poorest cities per capita in America. I looked it up. It's on the top 10, right? It's top 10 poor cities in America per population. And the employment rate is like, I think 25% or something like that. It's over 25%. I know that. It's between 25 and 32%, but it's over 25% for sure in Jackson, Mississippi. So he understands the impoverished mentality that people have been raised under, the type of mentality. So he's like, look, the radio doesn't mean anything to me. I can get another radio. I can get another watch. It's the principle of I'm coming here to help you all and give and not take, right? He gave a lot. Let's be real. We have to not, like you said, Kayode, where's the responsibility to come? He gave a lot. The man was cutting the grass. He's a head coach. He's cutting the grass of the practice facility, on the campus. You know what I mean? Like that's a different mentality, man. He's like, look, I'm here to pour in as much as I can while I'm here, however long I'm here. And instead of you worrying about how long I'm gonna stay, which I get it, he gets it, he understands. Why don't you just acknowledge why I'm here? Right? That's the other part of it. Acknowledge why I'm here and what I'm doing instead of saying, oh, you didn't stay 5 years. You didn't stay 10 years. But I stayed long enough for you to understand that when I was here, present.
Gave you an undefeated season and a championship on top of it.
You know what I'm saying? So that doesn't go
5-year time frame.
You can't denounce that. I'm not saying you can't be upset, but you also cannot denounce that either. That's what I'm saying. Because we want to be like it's an either or. No, it's both. You can acknowledge that you're upset that he didn't stay, because I am too, and many people were. But then also now this is a business, and what did he do while he was here? right? It's like, just to be real, family, there are people who are transitioning, passing on, dying during this time of the holiday. If you're saying, man, I wish they could have been here 10 more years, did you acknowledge them while they were here? Did you celebrate them while they were here? That's the true question. Did you celebrate and acknowledge them while they were here present in your cipher, in your surroundings? That's the true question, man. That's that, we gotta acknowledge people and recognize what they can do, what they can't do, and say, okay, Deion is really good at this, but he's really bad at this. Okay, so now when I do what I'm supposed to be doing, let me make sure that I cover that perspective of things. Make sure I cover that.
Oh man, oh man. I think outside
Man.
of outside of Deion Sanders,